Alright, today we're going to be installing a Move bumper on the front of this 2005 Chevy Avalanche. I've already removed the bumper. This truck was in an accident, so the front bumper is kind of smashed up, so I've already pulled it off. I did that prior to even ordering a Move bumper, so if you want to know how to do that, I'm sure there's other videos showing. It's just a couple of bolts, one in each corner, a couple in the front, and it comes right off. Always make sure to unplug any electronics that are plugged into the bumper before pulling it off, just as a good note. First thing you're going to want to do anytime you get one of these Move bumper kits is to lay everything out, make sure you have all the different components, and also get an idea of how it's put together. This is a pre-runner kit, so I've also got the hoops and the side bars there, and then also all of these pod light mounting and light bar mounting hardware in here. Now to install the mounting plates on the front rails here, you'll need to take off all this plastic, your front hooks, all this upper stuff is all built into the truck, so you can leave that, but you're going to want to get everything else off. Once you get those things taken off the mounting points, you can go ahead and bolt up your bumper mounting plates. There's one bolt for the top here. On this lower plate there's a side bolt and then one that's underneath. For now we're going to leave that underneath one out so we can pivot this up and down. You'll need to loosen the bolt a little bit. I can show you on this one so you can, maybe not. You can pivot this up and down in order to match the plate up with the bumper. To get these level, you just got to kind of eyeball it. It doesn't make a huge difference. Once you weld it on, it's going to be what it is. To line them up, I just kind of look down the face of these until they're both pretty parallel with each other. Same on both sides. To find the center of the vehicle, what I did is measure between the two bolts here, and then use a square to measure up to the center of the grill there and put a mark on some tape. At this point, you should be able to find the center on the center portion of your grill and get that mocked up here the way you want it and tack it up. I found the center of the center plate of the bumper the same way, just measure across. It was 34 inches, so 17 inches to the center. Mark that on some tape so we can line that mark on the tape up with the tape we have on the bumper. As I began mocking this up on the truck, I realized you're going to want to have the tape down here on this lower lip, otherwise you won't be able to see it back up in there. Alright, so I got the front center piece mocked up kind of where I want it. I've got both of the rails attached loosely at this point. I got it nice and centered in our lines lined up there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tack these pieces to the face on each side, making sure they're nice and straight across and sitting nicely. Once we get them tacked on, we can then adjust the gap here. I want the point of this to kind of be even with the radius on here, so it's a little far in right now. But with the slots cut in the plates, we should be able to slide that forward where we want it. And then we'll measure to make sure it's nice and even and finish tacking up the lower arms. Alright, so I got a tack on each of those upper rails. I'm going to pull out the wood I used to kind of level it on the front there. And then we can adjust it out where we want it and then tack on the lower support braces. So the way I'm measuring to make sure this is nice and even on each side is by butting it up to this rail that's built into the frame of the truck, and then taking the measurement that's right in the center of the plate on each side. So right now we're sitting at 10.5, and that looks good to me, so we're going to tighten up the bolts and lock her into place. Alright, now you're going to want to bring these lower plates out. You need to loosen the bolt there in order to slide them out, but bring them up until they're nice and flush on this plate, tack them into place. Once you get those two rails tacked on, go ahead and adjust the bumper out as far as you want. I had to move it back in a little bit in order for these plates to reach out and touch it properly. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and loosen the bolts and readjust and get my measurement where I want it. Alright, so I went and got the bumper pulled out as far as it could go and leveled it out again, evened it out from each side, and now I'm going to go ahead and tack on these wings. Since it's just me, the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put a tack here in this corner. that'll be strong enough to hold it, and then I'll try and reposition it as needed from there before I tack on the other sides. All right, I got that wing tacked in place. One tack up there, one down this corner. There's a bit of a gap in between here. I think that's from, I had a little bit of a gap right here when I tacked it on. I'm okay with that because I really like the way this gap looks along the light here. This light's getting replaced, by the way. It's nice and even, so we're just gonna fill that gap with weld, and it should be fine. All right, we got this other wing tacked on. The gap between the light on this side and the bumper is the same as that side, so that looks really good. These corners look the same, so it looks like we got her nice and level on there. This side lined up a little better down at the bottom, so we're good there. And yeah, now we can go ahead and tack on these outside wings on this edge. In order to get these plates to fit up properly, you're going to need to trim some of the inner mud flap on these. Just about an inch is all you need to take off that edge. And that's what she'll look like once you get that wing tacked on there. You'll want to pull out the turn signal lights. They just pop out. There's a clip on this edge, so if you just pull from this edge, it'll pop right out. And you can put a little bit of a tack in here on this little bit of a wing in there. Here's what it looks like with that tail light pulled out of there. There's a bit of a gap here. I did that because I wanted to keep this body line kind of nice and straight and flush with the fender there. So we'll go ahead and fill that with weld once we finish that up. Now that we got this side tacked up, we'll go ahead and put that wing on this other side, and then we'll pull the bumper off so we can start welding up all of the light bar mounting things. And there's what she looks like with all of the plates tacked on. We're actually going to move and start doing the pre-runner front tubes on here. So I'll show you how to do that in a second. Go ahead and get your front pre-runner hoop, and you want to double check and make sure that the sides are even. This side is actually 3/4 of an inch shorter than that other side. So when we do our initial bevel cuts, we're going to cut it off this side first and then try and match up the other side. And focus. The way we're going to do that is just using a angle grinder with a cutoff wheel. So the way I'm going to get my lines in order to cut these off at the right angle is I'm measuring up, just tucking it into the gap here, measuring to the edge of the board. Same on both sides so we can get it nice and flat. And then I'm just going to eyeball it straight down across and put a line, and then go ahead and cut her off. Same on both sides. So I got my lines drawn on here. You can clearly see how much longer this tube is over here. So that's why it's important to measure that they're both the same and adjust as needed. As you're cutting these, make sure to stay to the outside of the line, just so you get a nice, or at least just stay consistent with whatever you do, inside, outside, or right on it. And go ahead and start cutting her off. All right, once you get those bevels cut, you should have something looking like this. You actually want to have a bit of an upcut on these bevels because of the angle of the grill here. It's not mounting flush on this plate, it's on these ones which go slightly at an angle back there, so you gotta accommodate for that in your cut. Make sure your table's nice and level, and then you can check the level of your bar, which is perfect. So now we can go ahead and get that tacked up on the bumper. I've gone ahead and marked 4 inches down from here, and then I'm going to line up the pipe on those marks on each side, and that looks like a pretty good spot to me, so that's where I'm going to mount her. All right, now that we got that tacked on there, go ahead and take a step back, get a couple different angles on it, eyeball it, making sure it looks good. You also want to take a few measurements coming off probably this front grill here. Just double check that your measurements are equal on each side and adjust as needed. All right, so this next part is the trickiest part of the whole operation. To get your sidebars here, first thing I'm going to do is cut the angle on this end, kind of where I like it. It's going to be somewhere in there because I want it to be below the tail or the turn signals and above the pod lights. So this part is just a bit of trial and error, get the fitment right, and then just copying it exactly to the other tube before you tack it on. All right, so here's what I've got cut so far. I got it cut down to the length I want, so I just lopped off the extra 6 or 8 inches or so. Put in a V in it, kind of where it's going to sit on this bar. I've lopped off this end at an angle, and sitting it on the truck with something kind of like that, that's pretty good over there for that angle. I'm going to need to adjust it a little bit as this one drops into this pipe a little bit more. But you just want to keep nibbling at it until you get a nice tight fit on this pipe over here. So you just take off a little bit by a little bit until it's sitting nice and flush, and you can fill the gaps with weld once you get to that point. All right, so I'm pretty happy with the fitment I got on this. I just slowly worked this away with a grinder and with a bench grinder. So now I'm going to copy this onto the other tube and go ahead and work that tube and get them to match, and then tack them up on the truck. So I got those 2 tubes all coped out. I went ahead and tacked them on, and that's what you look like. At this point you can take the bumper off and go ahead and finish welding all the different welds. Alright, so I got everything all welded up all the way around, and I've started tacking on the mounts for the pod lights. You want to mount this plate first, nice and at a 45-degree angle off the front faceplate. Just needs a couple tack welds, it doesn't need to be very strong. And then this mounting plate for the actual mounting for the pod light goes like this. Just a couple more tacks on there to get her nice and firm, and you should be good to go. Repeat that for all of the different mounting holes you have. Once you get those all tacked down, you're left with something looking like this, and you can go ahead and start figuring out how you're going to mount your center light bar. Alright, so I went ahead and got these front hooks tacked on, or fully welded on actually. Both sides I measured in 3 3/4 of an inch on each side to get it nice and even. And I've also welded in this plate for the light bar hole. Welded across the entire front, so it'll have a nice clean seam there. Shouldn't have any interference problems with the mounting holes for the front of the truck there. Should have plenty of space there. Next thing we're going to do is go ahead and mount in the tabs, the mounting tabs for the light bar. Alright, so for these light bar tabs, I'm going to cut these off here at this 45-degree angle. Just put a square up there and mark that line. Just cut those off, and then those will sit in here. I've already got them tacked in. These are extra ones here. There's an idea what they look like. I got to finish welding them up, and we'll be all set. And there she is with a coat of Herculiner on here. I'll do one more coat and then flip it over and do the inside as well. And there's the front all finished up and mounted up to the truck. Got all these lights mounted in here. These are all from Big Sky LED. Go check him out. He's got some great products at a great price. I'll show you what it looks like with them on. And there she is all lit up. Pretty stinking bright, especially when you get down in the beam path. Can't see much, can ya? Thanks for watching.